Good morning. It's the mission of Big Walnut Local Schools to inspire and guide each student to his or her maximum potential. I'd like to call this meeting to order with a Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jeremy, if you call the roll, please.
Mrs. Dorsch,
Present.
Mr. Fuji,
Here.
Mrs. Lee,
Here.
and Mr. Crowell and Mr. Schneider are not currently with us.
Item number 6, the superintendent's report.
Thank you. The majority of today is going to be construction focused, but before we get into that, I did want to share that we were able to have a vaccine clinic last weekend for all of the county educators. Went extremely well, and I want to give a big thank you to both the Delaware Public Health District. Once they found out that we were able to get the vaccine, it was kind of a very quick turnaround from the state, and hey, who's here's getting, these are the counties getting a week one. They were able to set up a clinic on a Sunday and kind of work us in around all the other appointments that they already had, which we greatly appreciated. And then big thank you to Olin Tangi as well for hosting the clinic, and they did a great job with all the logistics. So glad to have that process started. They will be repeating the process here in a month so that our staff members can get those too. And I think it went as well as it could have. So grateful for everybody's help and making that happen. So that was my only thing I had other than construction, unless anyone had any questions for me on that. All right, great. So we have Mr. Doug Swartz, our Director of Facilities, and he has a few items to go over with you today, and I know there's some follow-up expected at next week's evening meeting. We just want to give some information up front here. Doug?
Good morning. So we're going to discuss two items that, if all goes as planned, will be before this body as a resolution next week at the evening board meeting. The first one, which has been planned in our master plan for permanent improvement, is the replacement of the roof at Big Walnut Elementary. I sent out a document, I apologize, late last night, that kind of summarizes it. This is roughly $1 million project, and I want to point out it's actually $956,961 is the current project estimate or budget. That's about $9,000 under what we're actually carrying in the permanent improvement allocation or facilities master plan. So we're actually currently tracking under what we've allocated in that document we went through a couple of times with this board in terms of that 5-year plan of how we're using the permanent improvement money. So this has been on the radar for a couple of years. The biggest thing that you'll be taking action on, or the only thing you'll be taking action on, as requested next week, would be the hiring of the architect. That is Triad Architects. They've already done some preliminary work for us under a small PO. We've also had Division 7 and other HAZMAT or hazardous material abatement contractor specialists look at the roof. So you'll see in the budget there is some asbestos we have to remove. We've already got some investigation on the roof, some cores and whatnot. And one thing I did want to point out, we've talked about this before, to kind of add value added as we're doing the roof, it's advantageous to replace the rooftop units at the same time, since there's some flashing and whatnot involved in that. So we're doing that at the same time, so you'll see about $180,000 for that as well. So that is also part of their scope in terms of design. So the resolution for Triad would be in the amount of $38,500 next week for an actual contract to complete the drawings and take us through construction. This will be a 2-phase project, so again, $38,500 will be the resolution next week for contract. And this would take us through 2 phases. We do not have adequate funding to do it all at once. So we would do phase 1 in the summer, roughly half in the summer of 21. And then the second half, this would all be part of their contract, the summer of 22. That's how it's built into the permanent improvement budget. So it's a little unusual. It'll be a 2-step process. And that's how we'll contract it as well once we bring contractors on board, that they'll be bidding for a 2-summer approach. So a little different, but that's just how our money divides up in terms of moving that forward. So I'll stop there with the roof. I know that was a lot of information, but it's about the architect's contract is what will be before this body next week.
I think I would just add to that, I know we've talked before, but we get a little over $1 million a year from that PI. So obviously, as you look at the price of this, it's taking a big chunk. So when we looked initially at that bond issue in 2016 that failed, we were looking to include some of those things to knock out, but we're really having to kind of piecemeal unknown a little bit with the PI, so obviously we're grateful to have that PI money, but we just have to take a little bit different approach as far as stretching things out. But that's why we're doing it this way.
Any questions on the budget or the architect's role or responsibility or the 2 summers?
How do you do a roof in 2 summers when,
What I
I mean?
Well, there are, so we
Assuming
have
weather
some
occurs.
opportunities on this roof. There are a couple different planes, if you will, or levels of the roof. So there are natural places to break that contract up. We can also introduce some seaming, but that's our goal, is to try and break it up into natural, different elevations of the roof. So there is no disruption or opportunities for risk, if you will. So we believe we have a plan in place to mitigate that. We also would have the same roofer do, obviously, the summer of '21 and the summer of '22, so we have consistency of contractor and materials.
Doug, that's bidding both of those jobs at the same time then,
Yes.
in order to make sure that we have
That's
the
the
same
current,
contractor.
that's the current plan. Again, the market conditions may drive us a certain way, but that's where we're headed at this time, that we would go under contract, just as we're doing with the architect for both summers, if you will.
And I can tell you that this is typical for us to have to break buildings up like this. BWI in particular, I know we've done a couple times in sections, just due to the cost and the scale.
And that building would make a ton of sense from that perspective, because of kind of the different angles and shapes.
Correct.
BWE being, I'm just trying to fathom where the
The
breakup
gym
of
is
that would be.
raised, there's some areas of like the entrance area, for instance. So you're right, it's not a pure 50-50 differential. If we were to have a roof plan in front of us, you would not see 50% here and 50% there. It's probably 30-70. So we've already been in discussions. We had Division 7 kind of go and initially investigate, took some cores through the roof, tried to see what the insulation looked like and other things to prepare. That's how we built this more accurate budget against what was allocated in the PI. So we believe in talking to them and others, we'll be able to do it. But yeah, it will be a little unusual. You are correct. Anything else on the roof or Triad? Okay. The other discussion is bond money. Technically, it's the new schools project, and this is a proposed amendment and scope to VSWC Architects. So they're the architect and engineers of record on the new schools, the new high school, the new elementary, the site athletics, et cetera. And there's been some discussion in the past. The packet I sent, I'm going to turn to this sheet here just to remind you what we're discussing. So in the packet for VSWC, the very last page has a drawing of a red road, if you will, or 2 proposed drives. You may recall, Angie, I think, discussed it. I was out in December, and discussed the fact that we were looking at adding, now that we're living on the site with the elementary and starting to see how the site physically operates, we had this way back in the design, way back in the day. There's a desire or request to add an added driveway or access point off the main road, if you will, that's on the southern side of our site. That's the east-west drive that, just to remind you, eventually becomes a public road someday. So there's a desire to have a second drive off that. This is just 2 proposed locations. Again, don't want to go too far down the path, but there's utilities under here. There's a desire that this is one of the last areas we can build anything on. The dashed area, if you will, that dashed drive, where you see the coded note number 3, that's a future parking lot. So that is not built, just to share. So there's some desire, maybe we take advantage of that, maybe flesh that out a little bit, take advantage of this pavement. The other one was, no, let's go way the other direction and try to leave more areas and kind of stay clear of that, so there's a cleaner look when we go to add that on, or whatever we do in that corner of the site. In terms of the property line, if you see the word location under that arrowed note that says added drive location, the property line starts at the letter I there to the right, or that would be to the east. And then the easement for the public road is a dashed line that's right here at the bottom, just so you know. So again, this is that east-west drive right here, kind of going left to right on your page. That's the future public road. That's what we'd be coming off of. This is funded primarily through a donation that was accepted a little over a month ago of about $110,000. That's believed to be the funding source for this. So you can see, based on the estimate tops out at about 121. So we would be using a little bit of project contingency or interest or other bond funds to complete this job. Worst case, this is the worst case scenario in terms of the estimate. The architect's fee is what we'd be coming back for, though. Again, this would be amendment to their current contract. in the amount of $12,660. So this would be amendment number 1 to VSWC for $12,660 to do this additional drive. So they'll do the engineering, the civil work, there's a little bit, there's obviously some architectural, to get us there with the goal of having it completed by the fall, so we'll have it to start school next January. So I'll stop there for a second. That was a lot of info to say how it's funded. The purpose will be for the architect's amendment against their current contract, and it's for this additional drive. Any questions, or?
Two things. I was actually at PRE dropping off shoe boxes for Valentine boxes the other day, and yeah, we've got to do something. I mean, it was 3:15, and they were backed up, parents waiting to pick up kids already to our
We
main
back
drive.
up to that main future public road currently, correct?
It's been a long time since I've been in elementary school, but I was shocked at that. How many acres are we looking at here that we're cutting into with this drive? And are
We're-
those buildable acres that,
It's, can you see that line I just drew across there?
Yes.
yeah,
That angled black line? That's approximately where our sanitary line goes. So we've already somewhat divided, so the question really is, do we stay to the left, below that, above that, and maximize how much we can retain or preserve for future development? Also, and I apologize for doing this drawing out on the fly, this little box here and heading to the west is one of those detention ponds. So there's a detention pond here that spreads to the west. Remember, that's where prairie grasses and whatnot. There's a sanitary line. So we've already somewhat broken it up. There's a future parking lot. There are already some. So that's why there's 2 sketches or some thought, but that's why we have to go a little farther down and really evaluate, is there anything else happening here? What are we doing to that pond for stormwater, et cetera, because my goal would be to preserve as much as we can for some future building or use or purpose. So the drive may be some blending of this two or something slightly different as we begin to vet it through.
So I restrained myself from emailing you back last night, Doug. And actually, my days are combining, sorry. But the road as it sits now, the added drive location, the bold red line, looks like it runs right up to what would be the entrance gate to the athletic facility.
So that's essentially at the top here. You're correct. One of them is trying to play off what's already kind of a service entrance drive. That's how we get
That's
machinery
not-
and other things. That's not the public
Well,
entrance.
that's not a walking drive.
No,
There
the
you go,
public
never mind.
entrance is way on the north of the site.
Thank you. That answers it. No need for anything. Well, actually, no. Is that dashed line then that looks like it runs up to a gate currently thought to be fencing? Or is that something that's underground?
No, that's, you mean this black line here?
No, sir. If you,
Or the, okay,
like,
this
there's
guy
a
right here?
gate to that entrance area that you're, yes, yes, sir.
That is actually some of our, I believe, some of our electrical work.
So underground.
Correct.
Thank you. So we aren't losing anything in terms of public access or
No.
spectator kind
Correct.
of right of way if somebody were coming around there
Correct.
on a morning like this.
No, that's a
the-
service drive. That's how theoretically we'll get food trucks on the site. That's one of the purposes. Maintenance vehicles, an ambulance, things like that
Ah.
is what that's for.
Thank you. And on mornings like this, I actually drove back there like Leanna did to the elementary school this morning. That plowing then, and I don't know how this works, is that plowing our responsibility?
Currently, everything from North Miller stops is our responsibility, or where Kentner, where that driveway starts, is technically our responsibility. So the only pavement, based on the board's action, technically, is that little bit of Kentner Road, the public road that was built that we talked about, that starts at the cul-de-sac and goes maybe 400, 500 feet. That is the only public road that the village technically would be required to pay or plow. So the bike path, everything else is technically ours because it's on an easement. We either own it or we built it and own it.
They would take care of it.
Correct, under the agreement with the village, long-term, and the landowner, long-term, the extension of North Miller, which eventually curves and goes to the west and connects down to Kentner. All of that has easements that the board has agreed to that long-term, as development happens east and west or north of us, could become public roads and hand it to them. So it's all built to public road standards, but it's still currently the district's responsibility to maintain and plow.
My only, I certainly can understand the need for this and understand that the time to do it is now versus downstream. My only wonder was if that was gonna be like walking traffic there versus place for vehicle access. That makes a ton of sense, thank you.
And Doug, one more question.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure you already answered this, but where we have number 3 kind of pointing out that parking lot, that
Correct.
is future.
That's
that
the
we did-
future.
We opted not to do that,
Correct,
so.
where that dashed line heads up to here,
Yep,
that's where our parking stops right now.
okay, thank you.
And that's actually in place now. If you were to drive, in fact, the contractor's using that area.
Okay.
Okay, well, we'll be back next week then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That is all I have for superintendent's report today.
Thank you. Item 7, treasurer's report. Jeremy, do you have anything?
Yeah, I was just going to note a couple things. You may have seen out in the news about the governor introducing his budget on February 1st. Really, if you have looked at any of the scenarios, the main focus on that is continuing to put money into the Student Wellness and Success Fund. Initial simulations are showing a little increase in that would allow us to continue to invest in mental health and nursing, some of the things that we've talked about. I will say the process is young, so a lot will happen in the next months. Another item of note too is that House Bill 1 has been introduced by our General Assembly, and that is, we have had several conversations on the fair funding formula, and that is the bill that is being presented to put that into place as the new funding formula. So again, another thing to kind of be watching. One other thing I just wanted to share with the board is today we have, if you recall, in December, we had a resolution to do a refunding of some bonds, and that is today. So hopefully, all the calls I've been on, we are in a nice low interest environment, and the supply and demand is in our favor. So should have a good day with some decent savings that we can put into our bond fund and pay down some of the debt and kind of help in the future. So, any questions on that?
Do you have a desire or a target of what that savings goal would be?
It
I
all
know you're
depends on how things come in, but we are, with the way we've restructured, we've shortened some of the debt, as well as capturing some savings in the interest rate. We could be somewhere in the range of over $1 million to maybe $1.5 million.
So significant.
Yeah. And that savings over the life of those bonds, so probably it's about a 10-year period, but yeah, about $1 million to $1.5 million.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Item 8, board members' items of interest. Sherry.
Just a couple things. First, I wanted to just say thank you to all of the staff and students and administrators who were involved in thanking all of the board members at our last meeting. I know I took my big sign and my cards and I put them up on my wall in my office. That will be kind of my, anytime I need a smile as I get through my busy season at work here, that was very, very much appreciated. So thank you all for that. I saw in the paper a few weeks ago, the Delaware Gazette, the Delaware Area Chamber of Commerce and their virtual award ceremony. They had they recognized Big Walnut among the other school districts in the county with the Innovation in Business Award. And I really liked this kind of the quote in the paper. It said, "For their epic ingenuity in providing our local students with academics, meals, support, and so much more under overwhelming circumstances." So that acknowledgement was really great, I thought. And then also, my last thing, I had attended the Finance Committee meeting last week. And I just wanted, being there, it's great at these committees to see other community members take the time out of their schedules to get involved with our district and, provide their expertise to us. So just kind of that reminder of all of the great people we have in our community and all that they do for our schools and for our students. So just a big thank you to all of our community members out there and committees who are helping us do what we do.
Thank you. Steve?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Vice President. A couple of things. Number one, really, thanks to Angie. I missed my first board meeting, as everyone's aware.
Thank you for the kids that really announced and stuff.
Well, yeah, that's what I was just going to ask for in this moment. But I thought I did watch, I was paying attention through the entire Delaware Area Career Center presentation as well. So sorry that I missed that, fellow board members. But I did think it was very nice, like the types of things that the students went out and did, the video was nice, those types of things. I thought that was really kind, and I'm sure that it took a lot of effort in a very unique time to do that for us, so thank you. In addition, not to have anything get lost, but I did email our counselors because the next week was Counselor Appreciation Week, and as we talk about social, emotional kind of learning and expectations, I did want to make sure that I bring to note the fact that we've seen the studies that Mr. Cooper has shared in terms of recommendations for school counseling. We know that we are greatly under the Ohio School Counselor Association recommendation in that space, but did want them to know how much their work is valued in this time. Wanted to echo what our superintendent shared in terms of COVID testing for every staff member that was able to get tested and kind of correct, vaccinated, not tested. Yeah, see, that's what happens. The vaccine.
We didn't want our other staff members to think, I didn't know.
Tested, yeah, right, no, I did that, for everybody who's listening to this, you mean? No, the COVID vaccine and the work that was done not only by this district, but by the county in making that happen. I have the opportunity to talk with other counties and other superintendents in other states who don't even know what their plan is yet, and to know that we're that far ahead of the game is wonderful. And that also allows them kind of to be in service of what our mission is, and the fact that we have been in service to this community every day this school year shouldn't go unnoticed. And then finally, thanks to Angie Hamburg, our superintendent, for her 5 a.m. or 5:30 a.m. calls on days like this to not only be in session, but then to experience the joy of a snow day or a delay. Today's a delay, again, but that always generates a lot of excitement. And it's nice to have that kind of normalcy and kind of moment in a house in these days. So thank you. That's it.
Thank you. I would agree with the snow days and the 2-hour delays. Man, those have been so exciting at our house this year for whatever reason.
And other kids only get the, hey, so today we're on remote learning.
That's right, that's right. So anyway, thank you very much for that, and also for making those calls. I know that oftentimes not everyone is happy with those decisions that are made, but I believe that this district always has best interest of our kids and safety of our kids in mind when they're making those decisions, so.
Just try to err on the side of 190 square miles and teenage drivers.
Yep. So, also, I would like to say thanks to DACC for coming in for that presentation, and also thank you to Bryce Clausen for representing our district on their board. The other thing, I did want to give a huge thanks to Delaware Public Health District for coordinating the vaccination. I know other board members have mentioned that this morning, but in comparison to something that I heard out of New York, the fact that a school district found out that they were getting 10 vaccinations, and those were going to be lotteried to their staff members. Another school district near that same one, they were getting 30 vaccinations, and it was whoever responded first to a particular email. So I really appreciate that our governor has made the effort to make sure that we're protecting our staff as best we can, and that hopefully, that will allow us to continue to stay in school full-time. So, and that's all I have this morning. Item 10 already, scheduling of next board meeting. Our next board meeting is scheduled for next Thursday evening, February 18th, 6:30, right here. Streaming will be made available on the district website, and, oh, sorry, I missed number 9. Let's go back. Public participation. This is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not considered a public meeting. This is a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. Please reference criteria for public participation, which is attached to the agenda. Do we have anything today?
I haven't received anything.
Sorry about that misstep. Item 10, back to scheduling of next board meeting next Thursday, February 18th at 6:30 p.m. here at administrative offices. Our meeting will be streamed on the district website, and just remember that any board meeting or board member may be virtual at any time. Item 11, executive session. It is recommended the board enter executive session to prepare for negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment, and to consider the employment, appointment of public employee official, and to consider matters required to be kept confidential by federal law or regulations or state statutes. May I have a motion, please?
So moved?
I'll second.
Thank you. Jeremy, whenever you're ready.
Mr. Fuji?
Yes.
Mrs. Dorsch?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Yes. All right. It is not anticipated that we will come out of executive session to take any other further action today. So thanks for watching in, and maybe we'll see you next Thursday.